How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 15th, the Ides of November. Cam Rogers with you. It's the Cam Rogers Show. We're taking you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Let me be of the first to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. It's that time of year. People are starting to shop for their respective items to get those dinner tables all prepared and ready to go. A busy travel week next week as well. So hopefully all your preparations are going good. And we thank you for tuning into this completely live program. So we want you commenting, reacting, throwing in your thoughts about the various topics that I discuss here on the show today. It's a fun show at that. A lot of good content coming at you. We'll start off with a little college football playoff rankings debrief session. Let's all just catch our breaths, just take a look at the top 10 that we have here as we stand, and I'll throw in my thoughts about all of these teams that will be, of course, playing this week, and then the bigger games the following week. That's rivalry week, if you will. So you have the Iron Bowl, etc., Michigan, Ohio State. So I'll be talking about that in a matter of seconds. Then at the 15-minute mark, we have Mike Antolini, the VP of the Tiger Woods Foundation. He's getting ready for a big-time tournament, the Hero World Challenge, which will commence after Thanksgiving. That's when Tiger Woods will make his comeback, and I am sporting my Tiger Woods Dry Fit Technology polo right now, and I feel great doing it, and I'm looking forward to chatting with Mike as he prepares for what should be a really exciting tournament. Coming up later, a very interesting segment, and this is something we put a lot of work into, so we have a top 10 list, folks, of the most attractive college football coaching spots. I will count you down from number 10 all the way down to number 1. And this is a very applicable discussion because, of course, it's that time of year when coaches are starting to get canned. Jim McElwain looking at you, Butch Jones looking at you. So obviously, it's an intriguing topic to discuss, and we'll go through all the big-time schools across college football that perhaps rank highly in terms of attractiveness for college football coaches. And then later in the show, Chip Kelly, talking about coaching staffs and firings. I think Chip Kelly has a perfect opportunity to coach for the University of Florida. I'll tell you why he is a great fit for that school. I'll go through some examples, some analysis, and then a final word on the NFL playoff picture, time permitting. It's that time of year where the playoff push is on, and teams, even inside the playoff picture right now, are making weird moves. News just broke minutes ago about the Buffalo Bills benching Tyrod Taylor in favor of Nathan Peterman. And they're inside the playoff picture right now, and I'm not exactly sure why they would do that, but I digress. We'll be talking about the playoff picture if we have time at the end of the show. And a friendly reminder, you can get the podcast version of the Cam Rogers Show on iTunes. Just search The Cam Rogers Show. It'll say live at the end of it. Toss a subscribe and review if you so choose. Would really appreciate that. And you can get me wherever you go. You're on your plane, traveling to your family's place. And hey, you can listen to me while you're doing it. So definitely get that done. And let's get into the meat of the program here, talking about the college football playoff rankings that were revealed last night here on Chat Sports. It was a late night because of the big college basketball Tuesday that went on. So we got the rankings a little later than normal, but boy, were they full of intrigue. So we have 25 through 21 here for you. Boise State now a ranked team. Then you got Michigan at 24. They're ranked again as well with a big-time game this coming week against Wisconsin. That'll be big for Wisconsin's resume. There's Northwestern at number 23, Stanford and Bryce Love at number 22, and what a job by Memphis. 8-1 on the year. Riley Ferguson at the quarterback there, and Norvell, the head coach, who's been mentioned in many different hot board circles, if you will, for perhaps going over to a bigger school, maybe a Florida, maybe a Tennessee. I'm hearing his name a couple times in terms of those two schools. So Memphis having a good season so far. Will they retain their head coach? That's the big question mark there in that graphic. How about 20 through 16 here? LSU, you got to give it to Coach O and the resurgence that they've had so far in the latter part of their campaign. A rough start at the beginning, but then really turned it on. They're there at number 20. NC State, many thought they'd have playoff hopes, maybe legitimacy too. Not the case now. They have 3 losses, but they are at number 19, a team that has competed mightily so far this year. And a fantastic front seven at that. Washington at number 18, they're essentially done now. 8-2 now, lost on a Friday night, and for this Washington team, or really the Pac-12 in general, I think it's all over. And so you can kind of eliminate the Washington States of the world. I mean, Washington State, maybe. They need a miracle. USC would need a miracle as well. Talking about absolute chaos in front of them if they were to get into the college football playoff. Michigan State at 17. I have a bit of a problem with that considering, they've been blown out this year and coming off a loss as well. 3 losses total this year at number 17. Maybe it's the brand that's keeping them up there a little bit. And yeah, they have the victory over Michigan, and et cetera, but they got crushed by Ohio State. And that's when both those two teams were very closely ranked. So to have Michigan drop off only to 17, pretty surprising for me. And then Mississippi State. What a season they've had. And Dan Mullen has done a fantastic job with Nick Fitzgerald. And now Mississippi State gave Alabama all they could handle most recently in Starkville last week. 3 losses on the year, and they've competed a lot. So I have to give Mississippi State a lot of credit being there at number 16, playing in a tough SEC West. Very impressive stuff. 15 through 11, there's UCF, 9-0. Scott Frost and that offense. What a job they have done this year. And people are starting to think, okay, maybe the committee is starting to give UCF a little more respect now that they're, inside the top 15 and not like 17, 19, etc. Washington State, mentioned them. They need a miracle to get into the playoff. They're at 14. Oklahoma State at 13. They might not even make the Big 12 championship game. And if that were to occur, their playoff hopes are definitely over. They're very, very slim at this point. TCU at 12. And a lot of people are saying that if Oklahoma were to beat TCU in the Big 12 championship, that would actually hurt Oklahoma because then the committee starts to think, okay, does TCU have a lot of flaws here? Should they be lower ranked? So TCU there at number 12 right now, battled hard against Oklahoma most recently, and so there they are with only 2 losses on the season. USC at number 11, quietly at that. Sam Darnold has really improved. He's developed nicely throughout the year, and they're really the last line of defense for the Pac-12. The USC Trojans, they need a lot of good things to go down if that team out there in LA wants to get through to the college football playoff. Probably not going to happen. So let's get into the juice of the rankings now. 10 through 7, Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Georgia. Here's what I have to say about these teams. Notre Dame, they're done. They're eliminated. They're 8-2, 2 losses. Brian Kelly knew it, that this team could not lose another game, that essentially they were playing the playoffs ever since that loss to Georgia at home in South Bend. Now coming off a brutal loss, against Miami. It's all over for the Fighting Irish, and the argument is going to be raised, should Notre Dame go into a conference and play a conference championship game to help their resume? They don't have that argument this year because, of course, they're an independent team, and so at 8-2, it's all over for them. I do want to touch upon Ohio State. Now, the Buckeyes do have an outside shot here to get into the playoff. They need a lot of good things to happen. They need some chaos in front of them. Obviously, not as much chaos as, say, like a USC, for example. But for Ohio State, they have to obviously just throttle Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship and essentially wipe out any confidence the committee currently has in Wisconsin. The Badgers will be ranked higher. We'll get to them later. And the one thing that the Buckeyes have to really watch out for, they're allowing a lot of big plays. They allowed a whopping 43 plays of 20 yards or more in 10 games this season, which is 111th, that's 11th in the Big Ten and 52nd in the FBS. So I still think they're in the college football playoff conversation, but they have to really, carry momentum from that victory over Michigan State into these following games here. And they're obviously going to take down Illinois this coming week. Illinois is so bad, it's like bringing me to tears. Then they have Michigan. And, that'll be obviously a great rivalry game. I don't know what the final score will be. It could be a convincing win in terms of Ohio State. But we shall see. It really is going to come down to Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, right? And so if Ohio State can really just prove to the committee that Wisconsin has been a fraud all year, having not beat a lot of good teams, don't sleep on Ohio State getting into the college football playoff, especially if you see some chaos in the SEC. And by chaos, I mean Alabama losing to Auburn, and then Auburn beating Georgia in the SEC championship game. Something like that, where Ohio State can kind of get that chaos that they need to get into the playoff. And speaking of Georgia, there they are at number 7, 9-1 on the year. And the concern with me about the Bulldogs, are they too one-dimensional right now? Now, Georgia gained only 46 yards on 32 rushing attempts against the Tigers most recently in Auburn. And they averaged 1.4 yards per carry there. So that was after leading the SEC with 279 yards per game in the first 9 contests. And then until Saturday, the Bulldogs had survived while starting redshirt freshman guard Solomon Kinley and a true freshman tackle in Andrew Thomas. So a couple of liabilities on the offensive line. They got away with it until Auburn came along. And now, can Jake Fromm create more opportunity there in the passing game to really open up the run game at this point? Because Auburn gave the rest of college football a blueprint in terms of how to beat Georgia. You stack the box, you dare Jake Fromm to beat you deep, you play man-to-man press on the outside, and you say, come at us, Jake Fromm. So Georgia there at number 7, obviously going to the SEC championship game. They're going to have to beat either Alabama or Auburn convincingly, in my eyes, to get into the tournament. I think the best chance for 2 teams out of 1 conference is actually the ACC. So speaking of the ACC, let's bring up the bracket that we have right here, right now. If the season were to end today, your 4 playoff teams: Alabama at 1, Clemson at 2, Miami at 3, Oklahoma at 4, and then you have Wisconsin and Auburn on the outside looking in here. The big surprise from me, watching the ranking show here on Chat Sports and seeing Clemson check in at number 2 over Miami, was pretty surprising for me. Now, I said in my projections that it would be Alabama at 1, Miami at 2. I had Clemson at 3, and then Oklahoma 4, and then Wisconsin, Auburn. So what the committee did here, I guess there was a big-time debate about where to put Clemson and Miami respectively. And for Miami, coming off a convincing victory against a Notre Dame team that has had actually a really great resume to this point, you know, it's pretty surprising to see the Canes not at number 2. So weigh in, folks. Throw in your comments. Should the Clemson Tigers be at number 2 right now as we stand? And I guess you could make the argument, and you could throw this in the comments, well, Cam, it doesn't really matter because both these teams, talking about Miami and Clemson, will be playing in the college football playoff, or excuse me, in the ACC championship game. So it'll all be settled then, right? They play in Charlotte in a couple of weeks, and so we can kind of have that determination at that point where Clemson and Miami should fall. But with that, I think both these teams are playoff worthy. I think Clemson and Miami both belong in that Final Four. And a lot of people are going to point to the Syracuse loss for Clemson. That's why Miami should be ahead of them. I don't actually think that's the reason why. I actually give Clemson a pass here about that loss to Syracuse with Kelly Bryant getting hurt in that game. I actually just have more faith in Miami right now because of 2 really convincing victories against the likes of Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. So just by default, Clemson should be behind them. I'm cutting them some slack here with the loss against Syracuse. All right, one final point here about the bracket I do want to say is that Oklahoma probably feels a little disrespected right now. The amount of points they've been putting up and only being at number 4 and then seeing Clemson jump them up to number 2. I think the Boomer Sooner Nation isn't exactly happy. So there you have it, the college football playoff rankings. We will have a fresh batch here on Chat Sports next Tuesday night, so stay tuned for that. And stay tuned here on the Cam Rogers Show. We're taking a quick break. Coming up on the other side, Mike Antolini of the Tiger Woods Foundation talking about Tiger Woods' return to golf and the Hero World Challenge. Stick around to the Cam Rogers Show. welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We have the VP of Championships at the Tiger Woods Foundation, Mike Antolini. Mike came on my ESPN New Hampshire show a couple years back during my college days, and we got him back on here. Really excited for this conversation. Mike, I really do appreciate you coming on. How we doing?
It's great to be back on with you, Cam. Thanks for having me.
And you're, of course, in the midst of preparing for the highly anticipated Hero World Challenge Golf Tournament, Mike, where, of course, we will see Tiger Woods play. And so I want to ask you right off the bat, how did you hear the news and what were your initial reactions?
Well, obviously very excited for Tiger's return, for it to take place at the Hero World Challenge at Albany. Really the perfect setting, as he said himself, to come back into competitive golf. And, things were trending positively, obviously, as the world has seen. He had been tweeting out some swings, looking smooth, looking nice online. And once he got clearance from his medical professionals, I knew there was a chance. And when it became a reality, obviously, we're just really excited, as the entire golfing and sporting world is as well.
And, of course, that tournament going down in the Bahamas, a very exciting location there. And, Mike, just talking about Tiger and his resiliency at this point. The guy has been through so many surgeries, so many injuries, and to come back again and play golf, which is, of course, very demanding on your back. Just how impressed have you been with Tiger's resiliency and his grit?
Yeah, always impressed with Tiger's grit and his drive. You don't become, arguably, at least in my opinion, certainly the greatest golfer of all time without having a drive unlike any other. So I can't say that I'm surprised to see him, teeing it up again. And it's certainly something that we're looking forward to see. And really the stars are going to align at Albany. We have an amazing field that Tiger is obviously a part of, not only as tournament host, but making his comeback. We have 8 out of the top 10 players in the world rankings playing, and it's going to be an event unlike any other.
There's no doubt about it. And it's a unique event, Mike, too, because, of course, it's very elite, but it's very small as well, very exclusive, and that's what makes it really fun to watch, too. It's something different in the schedule here. So, of course, you are in the midst of preparing for this, and I want to ask you, what makes the Hero World Challenge so special to you personally?
Well, Cam, you said it yourself, the exclusive nature of the event. And that's not just for the 18 players who tee it up. They're circling the date on their calendar at the beginning of the year. They know that they need to be really within the top 25 of the world rankings once the Tour Championship ends. But also for everyone who is a part of the tournament. Of course, Hero is our title sponsor, and all of our guests and the members at Albany who support the event so well, and everyone who comes out to be a part of the week, not only the tournament during the day, but we have a full week of evening activities with a beach party and a poker night and an after party on Sunday. It's a tournament week. Although only 18 players, it allows us to do some exciting things, certainly inside the ropes, but also outside the ropes as well. And Albany, for those who have been there, is a truly unique and special place, and the players couldn't be more relaxed. They couldn't be more excited to spend the week down there, in addition to everyone who's a part of it.
And Mike, you go through a lot of preparations for the many events that you are in charge of. What currently, right now, are you doing to prepare for the Hero World Challenge as we get to the point where the tournament's going to start pretty darn soon?
Yeah, we're obviously in execution mode. The build is putting the finishing touches on the site. We've had our operations manager Joey Carmen down there for more than a month now, and working with Albany to make sure all the finishing touches are put into place. Our full team will descend upon Albany next week and taking us right into the tournament week. And, it's really just about details. With every special event, you're really separated by the execution and how well we execute. You can plan and plan and plan, but at the end of the day, it's how do we execute when the lights are on. And we have a great team, and we're all going to be ready for the bright lights that Tiger and the world's best will bring November 27th through December 3rd.
The bright lights indeed. Very excited for the Hero World Challenge. Mike, if people want to look into perhaps tickets or going on over just to enjoy the party, how can they find out?
Yeah, everyone can visit our website at heroworldchallenge.com. We have both tickets and hospitality opportunities available. And then also, of course, we're live on Golf Channel Thursday and Friday. They actually extended the broadcast hours thanks to the news of Tiger teeing it up. So we'll be on 12:30 to 4:30 Eastern time, both Thursday and Friday of tournament week. And then, of course, on Saturday and Sunday, we're on lead-in on Golf Channel and then live on NBC from 2:30 to 5 and 1 to 4 on Sunday. So lots of coverage, wall-to-wall coverage. Of course, we'll have Morning Drive and Golf Channel will be out there as the entire world of not only golf but sports will be tuning in to see Tiger and the world's best at the Hero World Challenge.
No doubt about it. Very exciting tournament at that, Mike. And as we head to the 2018 calendar year here, what kind of events will you be putting on in addition to the Hero World Challenge?
Yeah, so we run the Genesis Open at Riviera Country Club, which is a favorite among the world's best in the PGA Tour. Of course, Dustin Johnson is our defending champ. Tickets actually go on sale next week for that, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say you could visit genesisopen.com for more information on that for your LA-based listeners. Riviera is truly iconic and one of the favorite courses for the players year over year on the PGA Tour. We also run the National in D.C., which takes place in the summer, June 25th through July 2nd, and planning for that has commenced as well. But we also run signature events. So we're going to be in Las Vegas in the spring, and also Tiger Woods Invitational, which is a 3-day golf and hospitality event in Pebble Beach in the second week of October. So there's a lot that our events team, TGR Live, runs, and you could actually visit us at tgrlive.com for information on our complete portfolio. It's a busy year, but it's a lot of fun, and at the end of the day, we're not only crowning champions inside the ropes, but we're helping underserved kids outside the ropes through the Tiger Woods Foundation, so it means a lot.
There's no doubt about that. Really a beautiful thing that you guys do for the community, basically here in America in general. So, Mike, with that, I do want to ask you here, I actually gathered from my research that you actually have a pretty darn good relationship with PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan. In fact, he was kind of a mentor to you as you kind of rose up the ranks in the PGA Tour world. Just how awesome has he been to you as you sit here today in a prime position in the Tiger Woods Foundation?
Yeah, very fortunate to have crossed paths with Jay. Worked for him when he was the Chief Marketing Officer and ran business development at the PGA Tour. And I've said this a lot, but Jay is one special individual that you talk to him for 5 minutes and you feel like you've known him forever. He just kind of puts everyone at ease, and he's a tremendous leader. And to see him ascending to the top of the PGA Tour as its new commissioner is not a surprise for those who know him. And the tour is in great hands with Jay. So very fortunate to know Jay and have been able to work not only for him but alongside him as the PGA Tour host organization.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Antolini of the Tiger Woods Foundation. Check out Tiger's return to golf in a couple of weeks on Golf Channel, as Mike said. You can also check out the tournament itself on their website, too. Mike, really appreciate you carving out some time here to chat with me. I'm sure you're in a busy schedule right now, so it means a lot.
You got it. Thanks, Cam. Anytime, and congrats on all your success as well.
I appreciate that, and take care, Mike, here, and many Thanks to him for coming on the program here on the Cam Rogers Show. Tiger's back, baby. I've got my Tiger polo on. Yes, I'm a bit of a homer. I got the Tiger Woods hat here, too, as well. So, very exciting stuff here in the Chat Sports Studios. I'm beaming with energy as Tiger makes his return. So we will transition back into college football. Very exciting segment here. So myself and much of the staff here at Chat Sports have gotten together and have accumulated a list of the top coaching spots in all of college football. So just pretend that every single college football team does not have a head coach. Which spots are the most attractive? And we're going to count you down from number 10 all the way down to number 1. Let's get into it. Number 10, the top coaching spots in college football, the University of Miami. So obviously, the big storyline with them right now is, hey, look, this school is back, right? I mean, they're back in the playoff fold. They're back to being national contenders, if you will. And you think about Miami, you think about Michael Irvin, and Ed Reed, etc. They have 5 national titles, most recently in 2001. And all-time wins, 622, win percentage of 64. And before I get into more analysis about Miami, I just want to let you all know what exactly we took into account here. So we took into account national titles, all-time wins, win percentage, as you see on the graphic there. Their outfitter is very important, too, in terms of monetary aspects. Also talking about Heisman winners, talking about the history of these schools, the recruiting in that specific area. And so Miami, obviously, in a good spot in terms of recruiting, in Florida, especially in the southern area of it, in the southeastern part of the state. And so Miami right now at number 10, I actually thought that there could be an argument that they could be a little higher, but I do like where they are right now. And this is a team that obviously is playing very good football right now, and that's why they are number 3 in the college football playoff. 9 conference titles. That was all in the Big East. The first season in 1926. So one of the younger teams in the list here, but still obviously a lot of history going back into the 80s and the 90s. 2 Heisman winners, in most notably Vinny Testaverde. Dennis Erickson era is of most importance here. From 89 to 94, included a couple of national titles there. So that's when Miami really became the U. And I'm also looking at some other intangibles here. So I'm talking about, special sayings, maybe songs, maybe stadium names, nicknames, etc. There is nothing more iconic in terms of making a symbol, in my eyes, than the U symbol, right? When you put your 2 hands up and you connect your thumbs and you create that U symbol. That is universally known in college football circles. So that's why we have Miami at number 10. They have the national titles. The win percentage is solid. They have a couple of Heisman winners in their history. You're talking about the Dennis Erickson era here of 89 to 94, where they won 2 national titles and really became a national contender and a brand, if you will. So we have the U there at number 10 for all of those reasons. And hey, they could add to that national title column this year, making it number 6 if they do indeed win the college football playoff national championship come January. So Miami there at number 10 in terms of the most attractive coaching spots in college football. How about number 9 here? Sticking in the Sunshine State, we've got Florida State University. A couple of national titles, 3 to be exact, most recently in 2013 with Mr. Jameis Winston. And Florida State, 18 conference titles in their own right. Their first season, 1947. So definitely not one of the most storied in terms of longevity. They're one of the more younger teams. But they have a great bowl record, 27-16. And 3 total Heisman winners, most recently Jameis Winston. And when you think Florida State, you think about the chant that they have, during the games, and they have the mascot riding out in a horse. So obviously, a couple of iconic things that go along with the traditions of Florida State. All-time wins, 535. win percentage of 68, which is pretty darn good, and outfitted by Nike. You'll notice that a lot of these schools are going to be Nike. And I'm not sure if that's just because, it's a coincidence. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But Nike is reigning supreme in this list here. So Florida State at number 9. So we have Miami at number 10 in terms of the most attractive college football coaching spots. Florida State at number 9. And as I go through this list here, ladies and gentlemen, throw in your thoughts, because I feel like there's going to be some contention in the comments section here about where each school should fall in terms of their history, in terms of their all-time wins, national titles, etc. But Florida State locked in at number 9. Number 8, USC. The Trojans in LA. 11 national titles, most recently in 2004. 829 all-time wins with a win percentage of 70%. They really reign supreme out west. They are the gold standard, I feel, out west. Highest all-time postseason winning percentage of schools with 25 or more bowl appearances. They have 38 conference titles and a history that is truly rich with their first season in 1888. And you really want to look back at the history here, and you want to zone in on the 60s to the late 70s. That included national titles in 67, 72, 74, and 78. So really the kings of the 70s, it seems, and the late 60s here. By the way, 6 Heisman Trophy winners: Leinart, Palmer, O.J. Simpson. This is a school that, amazingly, being out west, is pretty old, right? I mean, 1888 is pretty darn old here in California, one of the younger states in the continental U.S., so it's pretty impressive to see how USC got going so early in our nation's history and really caught on in terms of winning in those 70s when they just ripped off a slew of national titles. And USC, you think USC, you think about the fantastic bowl appearances that they've had in their history, and Matt Leinart obviously is a guy that comes to mind, Carson Palmer as well. So many fantastic games, even in the 2000s, early 2000s. So if you were a head coach and there is a vacancy at USC, you're looking at USC in terms of your top 3, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it is. I mean, USC obviously is a school that belongs on this list. So we have them at number 8 for all of those reasons. And by the way, the amount of Heisman Trophy winners is really staggering. They're only behind 2 other schools, and those schools will be mentioned. So stay tuned for that. Let's get to number 7. Oh yeah, Notre Dame. That's one of those schools with an all-time most 7 Heisman winners. What can we say about this school? They have a channel that purchases packages of games solely played by Notre Dame, talking about NBC. 11 national titles, most recently in 88, so it has been a while. All-time wins, though, you can't compete with 904, a 73% win percentage outfitted by Under Armour. And they had a dominant, and I'm talking about dominant, Frank Leahy era in the 1940s, where they had 4 national titles in a 7-year span. 99 consensus All-Americans coming out of Notre Dame. And you can kind of look to Hollywood, too. Remember Rudy, right? That was a movie that really resonated with folks in back in the day when that movie was released, and really brought Notre Dame to even more of a national fold when people, not necessarily watching college football, but they like to watch movies, and they saw Rudy, and they kind of fell in love with Notre Dame and the story of Notre Dame and the history and all of this. So if you're a college football coaching candidate and you see a vacancy in Notre Dame, you're thinking, all right, we gotta look into this, right? It's probably atop your list. So obviously a dominant era with Leahy in the 40s, but I mean, a team that has been in the national fold a couple of times, most recently in the BCS championship game. Remember that game against Alabama? Did not end up how they would want, but still. And they have 495 players selected in the NFL draft in history. That's second to only a team I just mentioned in USC. So Notre Dame, number 7, in the top coaching spots in college football. If you're just joining us, we are power ranking the most attractive college football coaching spots in America. And so with that, we're talking about a scenario where every head coaching position is open. Where should we rank all of these schools? And I talked about University of Miami at 10, Florida State at number 9, USC at number 8, now on number 7 with Notre Dame. And yeah, you can't leave this school off the list. And so South Bend, Indiana, you know it when you hear it. So that's why we have Notre Dame there at number 7. Number 6, the Oklahoma Sooners. Can I get a boomer sooner, ladies and gentlemen? The number 6 spot here. 7 national titles, most recently at the turn of the century in 2000. All-time wins, 879 with a win percentage of 72. Outfitted by Nike. Rich in history. First season in 1895. So they've had just 2 coaches in this millennium. Talking about Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley, who's the new head coach here for Oklahoma. So the stability at the head coaching position, impressive in its own right. They had a dominant era post-World War II under Bud Wilkinson, where Bud won 3 national titles under his reign. 46 conference titles in all, 77 consensus All-Americans, 5 Heisman Trophy winners, Sam Bradford, Billy Sims, Barry Sanders most notably. And when you think the Plain States, you think football, right? And you think Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner, one of the more iconic phrases in college football. And when you hear it, you know it. You think Oklahoma. And so that's why we have them on this list here. By the way, they hold the record for the longest winning streak in Division I history with 47. And so actually, I'm looking at a couple of the comments coming in here. Cameron chiming in, Oklahoma switched to Jordan. Jordan, part of the Nike brand. So yes, actually that news came out a couple of weeks ago, I believe. Or actually, maybe it was last week. And so, yeah, I mean, Jordan and Nike kind of intertwined there. So Oklahoma with a big-time kind of acquisition with the Jordan brand. So Oklahoma there at number 6. And we do have a weigh-in for you folks at home. As we go through this list here, we're about halfway. And if you're just joining us, it's Miami at 10, Florida State at 9, USC at 8, Notre Dame at 7, Oklahoma at 6. In your eyes, for the folks at home, what's the most attractive coaching spot in all of college football? So I'm talking about head coaching position. If there are vacancies all across America, where exactly would you want to coach, or where would you want, or where do you think a head coach would want to go to? What would be number 1 on their list? And so, so with that, throw in your comments. We'll get to them throughout the program here. And a little bit of a typo here in my actual writing. Barry Sanders of USC. USC. Or excuse me, just checking out the ratings here. Oklahoma, the Sooners. So Oklahoma State, the Cowboys. So a lot of Heisman Trophy winners here in my list. USC tied with the most, or actually they're up there in the list with 6, and Notre Dame with 7. And so another team we'll get to later has 7 as well. Stay tuned for that. Hint, hint, foreshadowing. But throw in your comments. The most attractive college coaching spot in all of football. Let's get to number 5. This team and this program certainly has a lot of Heisman winners, a lot of national titles, a big-time win percentage. How about the all-time wins, though? 943. Talking about the University of Michigan here. First season in 1879. They had an unbelievable run at the turn of the century, folks, where they won national titles in 1901, 1902, 1903, and 1904 under Fielding Yost's, quote, point-a-minute team. So he had that phrase, point a minute, where, I mean, they were just firing on all cylinders back in the day. So Michigan, the history goes back a long time. A few Heisman winners and a few brand names at that. Desmond Howard, you know him. College Game Day. Charles Woodson, you know him as well. And so Obviously, a list that is very impressive. The national titles, obviously, is something that stuck out to me. And when I hear the Big House, I know exactly what is happening. We're talking about a home Michigan football game, a rabid fan base, crazy tailgates, an insane amount of audience and viewership that they get on their broadcasts, and a fantastic rivalry with Ohio State. So the Wolverines there at number 5, 81 consensus All-Americans from 1900 to 1989. Michigan was led by a series of 9 head coaches, each of whom have been inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, either as a player or as a coach. So that's an amazing resume, and one of the best fan bases in college sports, as I said. And a lot of these teams also obviously have fantastic fan bases, but Michigan, I think, has maybe top 3 or 2 best fan bases in all of college football. So the Wolverines check in at number 5. How about number 4 here? Alabama, the Crimson Tide. Tuscaloosa, Alabama. National title, 16 total. Most recently in 2015. They could add on to that total this year, the way in which they're playing football right now. At number 1 in the college football playoff rankings, all-time wins, 887, with a win percentage of 72. They are the gold standard of college football right now, folks. I mean, talking about the entire scope of America, they are the team in college football. Undoubtedly has the best coach in all of CFP, and Nick Saban right now. And first season was 1892, so pretty good history at that. 30 conference titles. A couple of recent Heisman winners. They don't have a lot of them, but a couple of recent ones in Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry. And we can't forget the Bear Bryant era of 1958 to 1982, winning 6 national championships. And Bryant-Denny Stadium, obviously not as notable in terms of the name brand as, say, the Big House or the Horseshoe, but it's the 7th largest stadium in the United States. That's unbelievable. We're talking about a college football team. 7th biggest stadium in the U.S. So the Alabama Crimson Tide falling at number 4 in our top coaching spots in all of college football. Getting into the crux of our list here. Number 3, Texas. 11 national titles, most recently in 2008. All-time wins, 884, with a pretty good win percentage as well. Their first season in 1893. And kind of looking back here in a recent statistic, in 2012, Texas was valued at $805 million. That's more than the calculated value of several NFL teams back then in 2012. And so you look at Texas in the resume, 2nd in number of bowl game appearances with 53, 4th in bowl game victories. And they have the most Cotton Bowl Classic appearances and victories in history. By the way, an entire channel devoted solely to this program, the Longhorn Network, owned by ESPN. So if that's not indicative of how big this program is, I don't know what is. So continue to throw your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. The most attractive college coaching spot in all of football. I'm seeing Buckeyes. I'm seeing Clemson here. Keep them coming. I want to know what you folks think at home. We have Texas at 3. If you're just tuning in, I will recap for you what we have so far. Miami at number 10, followed by Florida State at number 9, and then we have USC at number 8. Notre Dame at number 7, Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner at number 6, Michigan at number 5, Alabama at number 4, and then Texas at number 3, the program that I'm talking about right now. A couple of cool Heisman winners. I remember watching these players play or watching the tape, and really fantastic. Earl Campbell, Ricky Williams there playing for Texas. So outfitted by Nike. Nike actually has a big contract with this school. You think Nike, you think Oregon number 1, of course, but Texas probably is right behind Oregon. So Texas at number 3. I'm hearing a hook 'em. I'm seeing the hook 'em comments. I'm hearing Buckeyes. Let's get to number 2. Will it be Ohio State? No, Florida. The University of Florida, 3 national titles, most recently in 2008, 710 all-time wins with a win percentage of 63. I have them here because the main driving force, the recruiting. One of the richest recruiting grounds in America for the University of Florida that they have to play with. A big reason why I feel that Chip Kelly should be coming on over to the University of Florida and coaching for that team, because I think it'd be great. I'll get to that later. Established in 1906, so one of the more younger schools here. Not the youngest on my list, but still. One of the more dominant teams of the 90s and the early 2000s. That's when they really picked up steam, winning the SEC in 91, 93, 94, 95, 96, and then in 2000, 2006, and 2008, of course, one of the more iconic coaches in college football, and Steve Spurrier, with an incredible run from 1990 to 2001. And you could make the argument that, yes, this was a bit of a late bloomer program. It took some time for this school to really rack up wins and go through the necessary victories to actually be on this list. So, still, you look at the recency here. Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier. These are coaches that are just undoubtedly some of the best ever. And few stadiums out there have such iconic nicknames as the Swamp, right? You think about the stadiums out there in college football. You have the Big House, like I mentioned, an iconic nickname in its own right. The Horseshoe with Ohio State. But the Swamp in Florida, right up there. So the University of Florida at number 2 in terms of the most attractive coaching spots in all of college football. So it's time. I saw some comments in here, and people are waiting for Buckeye Nation to show up. Well, you know what, Ohio State fans? Here you go. Ohio State, Columbus, Ohio, the top coaching spot in all of college football. I said USC was the gold standard of college football out west. You could make the argument that Ohio State is the gold standard of the Midwest, if you want to look at it geographically. Ohio State, what can we say? 8 national titles, most recently in 2014, 894 total wins, and a win percentage of 72. Now, Ohio State, first season in 1890, and you think about one of the more iconic coaches, Woody Hayes, where OU won over 200 total games under his reign, 13 Big Ten championships, and 5 national championships. A great run in the 50s and 60s, and into 70 as well, 54, 57, 61, 68, and 70. So as of this year, the football program is valued at $1.5 billion, which is the highest valuation of any such program in the country. That's all you need to know in terms of why Ohio State is the number 1 most attractive college football coaching spot right now. That stat right there, $1.5 billion. Urban Meyer, what can we say about him too? A great coach right now, and one of the best in terms of recruiting, can't be understated, and especially when Ohio may not be attractive because of the weather, the cold, whatever it may be, and maybe players want to go to a Florida where it's nicer, etc. Urban Meyer has the ability to change players' minds. And a master recruiter, and that's why Ohio State here is at number 1. 7 total Heisman winners, so that's tied for most all time. So you got Eddie George, Troy Smith, Archie Griffin, who won it twice, 37 conference championships, 10 undefeated seasons too, and 6 perfect seasons of having no losses or ties. So accumulate all of that together, Ohio State, number 1 on my list. So there you have it. Let's recap as we bring you back on screen. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. If you're just tuning in, let's revisit the list here in terms of the top college football programs in America. Miami at number 10. They are in the playoff hunt right now. Florida State at number 9 out there in Tallahassee. USC out west in LA at number 8. Notre Dame in South Bend at number 7. Oklahoma at number 6. 7 national titles for them. Michigan at number 5. The Big House, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Alabama, the gold standard of college football right now, at number 4. Texas at number 3. They have a whole station devoted to them. That's all you need to know. Florida at number 2, such a fantastic area for recruiting. Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier, you know the drill with them. And finally, number 1, Ohio State, the Buckeyes, home to Columbus, Ohio. So there you go. That's the list. Throw in your comments. Did I miss somebody? I heard some Clemsons in the comments section, so sorry, Clemson fans. Did not have you guys in there. So throw in some schools that maybe I missed, and I'll be talking about them later in the show here today. Let's stick with college football. Talking about the hot boards right now, most notably with Florida. And the news that's going on right now with Chip Kelly, and perhaps he coming on over to Gainesville to be the head coach for those Gators. I feel that he'd be just a seamless fit for this program. So right now he's a TV analyst. Sure, he's, giving his thoughts on ESPN about college football and, having a good time with it. Former Oregon head coach, that's the more important thing. He has the coaching experience, obviously, and had fantastic runs with the Ducks back in the day. I think he still has that itch. There are reports that he still has that feel for becoming a coach yet again. And I believe him. And so we are at the point now where Chip Kelly is interested. So can Florida pull out all the stops to get him? And the wheels are turning right now. There are reports out there via Twitter that Florida is doing its, quote, due diligence by vetting Chip Kelly right now, looking into him. And they're brushing it off by saying it's just, procedure, etc. But still, think about it. Chip Kelly and his offensive mind coming to Florida, a team that is struggling offensively this year, I think would be an amazing fit. Now, before I get into that, there has to be a note here about Chip Kelly. He left Oregon with NCAA infractions that resulted in 3 years of probation, so that's all over. A reduction in scholarships, show cause penalty for Kelly as well. Now, the SEC bylaw states in part that in regards to any coaching candidate involved with a past, quote, major violation, the hiring SEC president would have to consult directly with the commissioner prior to offering employment to that individual. Well, it seems as though that won't have to be any worry for Florida fans out there, because Greg Sankey has apparently said he will be looking past all of that, and he would, step aside for Chip Kelly to come on in. Now, we do have a tweet in terms of one of the reports that came out a couple of days ago, and this coming from Darren Heitner, confirmed that UF is looking at Chip Kelly as next head coach. Decision could be as soon as this week. Also heard that Florida was becoming very frustrated with Jimmy Sexton, who represents many other potential candidates. Very true. And Chip is represented by David Dunn. So if Florida wants to bypass Jimmy Sexton, I guess, because Sexton represents so many big-time coaching candidates right now, and they can go away from that awkward situation, go right to David Dunn and get Chip Kelly on over to coach for the Florida Gators. And I think it makes so much sense because, first of all, you look at the history that Chip Kelly has with Oregon. In his time as an Oregon coach, the Ducks never averaged less than 36.08 points per game. Over his final 3 years, the Ducks ranked number 1 nationally in scoring in 2010, number 3 in 2011, and number 2 in 2012. Florida desperately needs scoring. So their offense ranks 115th out of 129 total FBS teams with 20.6 points per game. So you think just on paper, Chip Kelly makes a lot of sense. And you have the graphic up there right there. So Yahoo reporting that Florida has begun a thorough vetting, as I mentioned. Tennessee, meanwhile, they have a head coaching vacancy as well. But I don't think they can compete with Chip Kelly. I don't think they can match in terms of monetary standpoint with Chip Kelly. Because remember, Tennessee, they have to deal with this buyout situation with Butch Jones. Of course, Florida does too with McElwain, but they kind of came to an agreement. Meanwhile, with Tennessee, they also want John Gruden. I think Gruden is their number 1, while for Florida, Chip Kelly is their number 1. Also, Dan Mullen in the mix as well. But again, you can kind of bypass the whole logistics with moving from one coaching school or from one football program to another. Because if you go to Chip Kelly, he's employed by ESPN. It's a totally different situation. So there's none of this buyout talk or anything like that. So we do have a weigh-in for you folks at home. And for you Gators fans, who should Florida hire as their head coach? Are you on the Chip Kelly bandwagon? Because I think Kelly would have the same level of exceptional facilities at Florida as he would at Oregon. Right? I think they're on par. Florida has the rich recruiting pool, unlike, say, the Pacific Northwest. So Chip Kelly can utilize the great facilities in Gainesville. He can utilize the recruiting pool that is around him. He's not a master recruiter. He's not an Urban Meyer per se. But I think if Kelly puts in the right staff around him, there's an opportunity for him to totally turn around this Florida football program in the coming years to make it a national contender once again, certainly a contender in the SEC. And so I think it would be a perfect fit. And I don't think Chip Kelly should go back to the NFL. People are saying, well, maybe he's thinking about the NFL too. Please, Chip, don't do that. Go back to college football. That's where you belong. You had way more success at Oregon than you did with Philadelphia and the San Francisco 49ers for that 1 year. That was a debacle. So Chip Kelly, one of the best fits for the University of Florida. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Chip Kelly. We'll see what happens. And, hey, we could have a decision this week. Those are the reports right now, so stay tuned for that. Let's transition into the final word. We have a couple of minutes for you talking about the NFL and the current playoff picture. And so here's how we stand right now. So we have some validity, some stability at the top of the AFC with the Patriots and the Steelers and the Chiefs. Those are, I feel, the true Super Bowl contenders. The ones that are kind of messy, you go down to the bottom and you look at Jacksonville, you look at Tennessee. Now you see Buffalo at number 6 right now. If the season were to end today, the Buffalo Bills would be a playoff team, and they'd be starting Nathan Peterman at the quarterback position. Yes, that's the news that broke this morning. Tyrod Taylor benched. Nathan Peterman is going to be the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills this coming week against the Los Angeles Chargers, who, by the way, are dealing with their own quarterback issues because Philip Rivers is dealing with a concussion. So you look at the playoff picture overall. I actually think the Baltimore Ravens have an opportunity here. You look at the teams around them right now, and as we have the graphics here, that's 1 through 4 as we stand. Steelers, Patriots, Chiefs, Titans. There are the Ravens there. Raiders, Dolphins, Jets. If you had to pick among the Bills and then all those teams on the outside looking in, who do you have the most faith in? Maybe the Raiders. I could understand that argument. But after that, probably the Ravens, if not the Ravens at number 1. Because coming off the bye, they have an opportunity where they are playing a bunch of backup quarterbacks. Tom Savage in the Houston Texans and Brett Hundley this week for the Green Bay Packers. I think the Baltimore Ravens see an opportunity that they can't pass up. If they win out or, say, lose 1 or 2, I think in a watered-down AFC, the Ravens can be a real contender in the playoff picture. The Bills are going to be out. They sit right there at number 6, but they're going to be out. So there you go. That's all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to the NFC playoff picture later this week because the Cam Rogers Show is coming back at you on Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Until then, enjoy your Wednesday, enjoy your Thursday, and I'll see you then. Stick around. Take care, everybody.